There is a graveyard in your life that no one else can see. It is filled with books you meant to finish, prayers you meant to continue, plans you announced with conviction, and responsibilities you keep moving into tomorrow. Nothing there looks dramatic, but every unfinished promise quietly teaches you not to trust your own decisions. Most people call this laziness or lack of motivation. Saint Benedict would have looked deeper. He understood that the real battle begins when the will becomes divided. One part of you wants the result, another refuses the discomfort. You want peace without order, growth without repetition, holiness without the ordinary obedience through which holiness is formed. Benedict did not write his rule for people trying to optimize a morning routine. He wrote for monks learning to seek God through prayer, work, obedience, humility, and stability. His goal was not to produce impressive men. It was to form faithful men, people who could continue doing the good when excitement had vanished. The rule begins with one word: listen. A person who never finishes anything is often listening to too many masters. One voice says, begin now. Another says, you are tired. Another says, first find a better method. Then a new idea appears, and the old responsibility is abandoned before it has time to bear fruit. Write one unfinished thing in the comments. Do not explain your whole life. Name only the task: prayer, study, work, confession, forgiveness, organization, or something else. Procrastination becomes powerful when it remains vague. A named responsibility is harder to hide beneath the promise that one day you will finally feel ready. In the Benedictine monastery, the day was not organized around mood. Prayer had its hour, reading had its hour, manual labor had its hour. Meals, silence, service, and rest also had their place. A monk did not reinvent his life every morning. He entered a rhythm that protected his vocation from the instability of preference. This is one reason modern people begin so much and finish so little. We work while the task feels meaningful. We pray while prayer feels consoling. We continue while progress is visible. The moment repetition becomes boring, we assume something has gone wrong. Saint Benedict expected resistance. His answer was obedience without delay, responding when the good becomes clear before excuses build a courtroom inside the mind. Delay rarely sounds like rebellion. It sounds reasonable. After one more video, when the room is quiet, when the plan is perfect, when energy returns. But every delay trains the will. The more often you postpone what you know should be done, the less authority your decisions possess. Eventually, you stop believing your own promises. You say, I will begin tomorrow, while some part of you already knows tomorrow will receive the same excuse. Press the like button now as a small act against that reflex. Not because clicking a button will repair your discipline, but because you heard an invitation to act and responded before saying, later. The habit of completion is rebuilt through concrete acts, not through admiration for good ideas. Benedict wrote that idleness is the enemy of the soul. He did not mean that rest is sinful or that every minute must be filled with frantic activity. His rule makes room for sleep, meals, reading, prayer, hospitality, weakness, and care. Rest restores a person for love. Idleness avoids purpose while leaving the heart more restless. You know the difference. Sometimes you stop working and become renewed. At other times you escape one responsibility and return more tired than before. The task remained in the background the entire time. You were not working, but you were not free. The unfinished duty followed you into the distraction. The Benedictine answer is not to conquer your entire life in one heroic afternoon. It is to receive the work of this hour, not tomorrow's work, not the imaginary work of your future perfect self, not 5 tasks opened at once. This responsibility, in this place, with the strength God has given you today. That protects you from 2 opposite failures. The first is refusing to begin because the task feels difficult. The second is constantly beginning something new because novelty feels easier than perseverance. One person remains frozen, the other remains busy, yet both end the day surrounded by things that never reached completion. Many abandoned projects were not impossible. They simply reached the moment when novelty ended. The prayer became dry. The course became repetitive. The business required boring administration. The relationship required an uncomfortable conversation. At that exact point, escape arrived disguised as a fresh beginning. Saint Benedict answered this instability with stability. The monk remained with a community, a place, and a path of conversion instead of running whenever reality exposed him. You may not live in a monastery, but the question still reaches you. Can you remain with a good responsibility long enough for it to change you? Subscribe if you are tired of collecting beginnings that never become a life. This channel will not use the saints as productivity coaches. We will recover discipline as freedom from moods that keep us from prayer, service, duty, and love. Benedictine order exists so that nothing becomes more important than seeking Christ. Yet the rule contains a surprising detail. Benedict does not teach that finishing means stubbornly protecting your personal plan. At times, the monk must leave his present work when obedience calls him elsewhere. How can leaving one task unfinished teach a person to finish what truly matters? The answer reveals whether you want faithfulness or merely control. In a monastery, a monk might be copying a manuscript, repairing a tool, or working in the field when the bell suddenly called him to prayer. Saint Benedict expected him to stop. He was not teaching carelessness. He was teaching that completion is not the same as controlling everything according to your own preference. The monk's deepest task was not the manuscript, the field, or the tool. His deepest task was to seek God through the order he had freely received. Leaving work when the bell rang could therefore be an act of greater faithfulness than stubbornly continuing. The question was never merely, did I finish what I started? It was, did I remain faithful to what God asked of me? This distinction matters because some people use productivity as another form of escape. They complete dozens of small tasks while avoiding the difficult conversation, the overdue confession, the promise made to their family, or the responsibility that frightens them. Their schedule looks full, but the central duty remains untouched. Benedictine discipline is not about completing everything. It is about recognizing what truly belongs to you and refusing to abandon it for something easier. It means finishing the work of your state in life before chasing the satisfaction of another beginning. It means allowing duty, not impulse, to decide what receives your attention. Ask yourself honestly, what are you doing efficiently in order to avoid what matters most? You may be organizing instead of beginning, researching instead of deciding, preparing instead of apologizing, or consuming religious content instead of actually praying. Busyness can protect procrastination more effectively than laziness ever could. Write this sentence in the comments and complete it with one honest word. The task I keep avoiding is... Do not write what sounds impressive. Name what keeps returning to your conscience. An unfinished responsibility becomes less mysterious when it is brought into the light. Saint Benedict also understood that not every person carries the same strength. His rule repeatedly makes room for the elderly, the sick, the young, the weak, and those burdened by unusually difficult work. He did not demand identical performance from everyone. He demanded sincere faithfulness according to each person's real capacity. This protects discipline from becoming cruelty. You do not need to punish yourself into consistency. You need to stop making promises that ignore your actual responsibilities, energy, and limitations. A smaller commitment kept faithfully is often more transforming than an ambitious plan abandoned after 3 days. Many people fail because they create a rule for an imaginary version of themselves. They plan for the person who never becomes tired, never gets interrupted, never loses focus, and never faces an emergency. Then real life arrives, the plan collapses, and they interpret the collapse as proof that discipline is impossible. Benedict built flexibility into order without surrendering order itself. The schedule could change with the seasons. Work could be adjusted according to circumstances. The weak could receive assistance, but the purpose remained. Prayer, work, reading, community, and conversion were not left to chance. You need the same kind of rule. Not a perfect schedule, but a stable minimum. Decide what faithfulness looks like on an ordinary difficult day. Perhaps it is 10 minutes of prayer, 1 completed work period, 1 page studied, 1 room restored, or 1 necessary message sent. Make the commitment small enough to survive resistance, but real enough to require obedience. Then protect the beginning. Do not negotiate with the task for 30 minutes before touching it. Begin badly if necessary. Open the document. Kneel down. Wash the first plate. Read the first paragraph. Make the call. The will becomes stronger when it experiences movement before emotion gives permission. And protect the ending. Many tasks remain unfinished because we leave the final 10% for some undefined future. We enjoy starting, building, imagining, and improving, but resist submitting, publishing, cleaning up, or making the final decision. Completion requires accepting that the work will never become perfect. Saint Benedict's rule is filled with humility because humility allows a person to finish. Pride says the work must prove your worth. Humility says the work must simply be offered faithfully. Pride delays because the result may be judged. Humility completes because obedience matters more than admiration. If this message is exposing a pattern you have lived with for years, subscribe now. Not as another promise you will forget, but as a decision to keep returning to the ancient disciplines that rebuild a divided life. The next lesson may reach you precisely when your motivation disappears again. There is also a spiritual reason unfinished things become dangerous. Every abandoned good intention can create a small layer of discouragement. Eventually, you no longer approach new duties with hope. You approach them with the memory of every previous failure. The past begins predicting the future before the work has even started. But Benedictine life was built on daily conversion. The monk did not need to repair his entire history before responding to the next bell. He only needed to rise and begin again. The rule assumes weakness, correction, failure, and return. Stability does not mean never falling. It means refusing to make departure your permanent answer. Perhaps you abandoned prayer for weeks. Return today without giving a speech about tomorrow. Perhaps your home, studies, work, or spiritual life has become disordered. Choose one responsibility and remain with it until the appointed stopping point. Do not wait for the feeling that your life is finally under control. When distraction appears, return. When enthusiasm fades, continue. When you fail, begin again without drama. When a better-looking idea tries to steal you from the duty already in your hands, remember that novelty offers excitement, but fidelity produces fruit. The Rule of Saint Benedict does not promise that every task will become enjoyable. It promises something better. Your life does not have to be ruled by whether you feel like continuing. Grace can train the will. Order can protect prayer. Repetition can become an offering. Work can become obedience, and obedience can become love. Tonight, choose one unfinished thing that truly belongs to you. Remove the unnecessary distractions, decide what completion means, and work on it for a clear period of time. Do not announce a new life. Do not design a perfect system. Simply answer the bell that is ringing now. The graveyard of unfinished promises does not disappear through regret. It begins to empty when one promise is kept. Then another. Then another. Slowly, your decisions regain their weight, your attention becomes less divided, and you discover the freedom Saint Benedict understood so well. The person who learns to obey the good no longer has to be controlled by every passing mood.